Hey mamas, this is Playfully Faithful Parenting, and I'm your host, Joy Wendling. I'm a seminary grad and children's and family minister turned stay-at-home mom to my 5 girls. Spiritual parenting is my calling, and it's my passion to help other mamas disciple their kids using the power of play and their own authentic daily walk with Christ. If you're a mama who wants to introduce your kids to Jesus and watch as the Holy Spirit transforms their lives, this is the place for you. I'm so glad you're here. So let's dive in and see how we can partner with God today. Hey mamas, welcome to Playfully Faithful Parenting. I'm so excited today to talk about pretend play and how we can use pretend play, or how we can understand when our kids are using pretend play, the benefits of that for their faith, for us as moms to nurture their relationship with God and the way they love Him and love others. So this past weekend, my oldest and I went down to Oregon, and I was speaking at a convention, and I, on the way back, listened to a couple of books on the way there and way back, and repeatedly I kept hearing in these books about the greatest commandment, right? The greatest commandment is to love God, and the second is equal to that, which is to love others. And pretend play allows kids to grow in both of those things when we set it up correctly, when we scaffold it. If you don't know what scaffolding is, listen to last week's episode. And when we provide opportunities and set up the environment and set up our kids for their pretend play to help them grow in their faith. So we are going to dig right in. And I believe that when you see the potential of pretend play for your child's faith and learn how to come alongside their pretend play, that it is going to help you more joy in your motherhood, because something your kids naturally do or naturally are drawn to do, one way that they experience joy and goodness and fun and abundant life for kids, we can also begin to see how it can help them to develop physically, socially, emotionally, and spiritually, as well as cognitively. So pretend play has benefits in all of these things. And in Luke 2:52, we see that Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and in his relationship with God and man, or in favor, it says, with God and man. So Jesus grew in wisdom, cognitively, stature, physically, with God, spiritually, and with man, social, emotionally. And so we are going to look at how, being a child like Jesus, our kids can also grow in all of those areas. And today, specifically through pretend play. My kids are outside my door right now, pretend playing. And so it is something that I see a lot of in my house. Now, not all kids will do pretend play. And there are some things that we can do to help them want to engage in pretend play. So this is a quote from an article I read that says, "Research has demonstrated that parents who talk to their children regularly, explaining features about nature and social issues, and who read or tell stories at bedtime seem to be most likely to foster pretend play. So that research comes from 2 articles, one from a Schmuckler and one from an article by Singer and Singer. And that was in this article, and I'll put a link in the show notes to this article on pretend play. So this is a secular article. So let's imagine, right? Let's be creative. And this is what I do is I translate this research into faith-based. Research has demonstrated that parents who talk to their children regularly explaining features about nature and social issues. What would you think? So these kids who their parents are talking about nature and social issues, they are pretend playing about nature and social issues. So parents who regularly talk to their children about faith, about the Bible, about God's creation, nature, about social issues that matter to God. What language do you think is going to come out of your children in pretend play if all of your language is seeped in God, seeped in Jesus and the Holy Spirit, seeped in the Word, backed by the Word? If the stories you're telling at bedtime are about things that God has done in your life and in the lives of His followers and the lives of those in the Bible, what kind of pretend play do you think your kids are going to engage in? If these are the kinds of things that help foster pretend play in our kids, can you imagine what happens when our conversations are seeped in God? And then that is what comes out in your kids' pretend play. And it happens because I see it in my girls. It doesn't mean all of their pretend play is about Bible stories and God, but they pretend Sunday school. They pretend pray. They pretend and include God and those that they know love Him in their pretend play. And so this is what I want you to get excited about with me, is that research shows when parents talk to their kids and read them stories and tell them stories, that it creates this environment and this intrinsic desire to pretend play. And we're going to get into all the benefits of pretend play in a minute. But it's so simple. It's what I already encourage us to do, is to talk to our kids. Deuteronomy 6:4-9. Love God first, and then talk about Him. Talk about His word at home, on the road, when you're going to bed, when you're getting up. And that's all it takes to spark this creativity and this desire for pretend play in most kids. All right, so now we have talked about how we can get our kids to pretend play and kind of the direction that we're going in, looking at Jesus from Luke 2:52, how He developed in all these ways. So now let's look at, how does pretend play help our kids develop in the same ways that Jesus developed? Well, kids process through play. And so often pretend play is a way for them to try on all the roles they've seen in the real world. Moms and dance teachers and Olympic horseback riders. That's a game my girls love to pretend play. Pastors, Sunday school teachers, doctors, nurses, moms. I mean, kids who play house, or as my kids call it, moms and honeys. What are they doing? They are playing, trying on the roles that they see. And so when they are seeing roles in the church, roles in the world that are living into what God has given these people to do, the kids get to pretend this. And that is part of why I think it is so important for kids to be in worship with their whole family, not just have separate kids worship, because kids can't pretend to be someone leading worship, can't pretend to be a pastor when they haven't seen it. But when they see it, when they see people worshiping God together, they can pretend to do that. When they see babies getting dedicated or baptized, they can pretend to do that. When they see communion, they can pretend to do that. They can try it on and see what that feels like and try out these roles that we have. This article also says that imaginative play or pretend play is a vital component to the normal development of kids, especially pretend play for kids ages 2.5 through 6 or 7. Those are really kind of the golden ages for play. And most of my girls fall in there. 4 of my 5 girls are in that age range. And Eden, my youngest, and even Selah, when she's the second youngest, they started earlier than 2.5 because they had older sisters who were already engaging in pretend play, and it just invited them into that. And so it was modeled a lot for them. And so they joined it. And my 10-year-old, she is still very actively engaged in pretend play. And so that is 2.5 to 6 or 7. It's kind of the golden age of it, but it is not the only ages. Okay. Firstborns who aren't around a lot of kids may take a little bit longer to begin to pretend play. And the more children you have, second born and on, may begin to pretend play a bit earlier. There are lots of developmental things that children need to be able to pretend play. And then there are some things that pretend play, once they're engaged in it, that it helps for them to grow in and learn. Some of the benefits of pretend play. So it has cognitive benefits. And Jesus, it says he grew in wisdom. That, I think, is that reflection of that cognitive development. Pretend play can help increase language and the way children use language. So when they are hearing faith-based words, our church words, we do have this certain Christianese for better or worse. When our kids are hearing those words, they can pretend to use them, and their tenses and language use, even with tenses and subjunctives and adjectives and all of those things, are increased through pretend play. It also gives them a chance to play out and grow in an understanding that the way they think may be different than the way other people think. This is called the theory of mind. So it helps them to understand that there are a variety of perspectives in each of us. And man, that is something the church needs right now. We forget that there are a variety of perspectives. And yes, in our faith, there are some truths, but there are some things also that are not truth, that are simply based on preferences and perspective. What type of music to sing in church, hymns, or more contemporary music is not specified in the Bible. That is a preference. And so helping our children to learn and grow in this theory of mind, there's so many other preferences that divide us as a church, that anything we can do to help our children see that there are a variety of perspectives and that it is okay and that we are all capable of playing together while still thinking a little differently, I think can only benefit the kingdom. All right. Pretend play also helps with children learning symbolism and organization and integrating ideas that are two different things, but putting them together, right? So perhaps they learned that, God made David brave. Well, in pretend play, they can figure out, oh, God made David brave over here. Maybe he can make me brave when I'm pretend playing this game and I feel scared. So it helps them integrate things. And it also helps them to be creative and to learn about themes of stories and symbols and those kinds of things. Pretend play is also a beautiful place for our children to process good and bad feelings. Not bad, not that a feeling is bad, but when they feel bad, negative feelings. And it helps them to learn to integrate their feelings with their thoughts. And don't we need that? Don't our kids need that? It helps with self-regulation. It reduces aggression. It helps them learn delayed gratification, to be civil and empathetic. The second commandment is just like the first. Love your neighbor as yourself. We need empathy for that. We need self-regulation for that. We need civility for that. And it helps with communication and problem solving as well. As they play through different roles, they are learning these social skills that help them grow and to be able to love and care for others like Christ has called us to. It also helps children's brains to become more flexible and creative. Pretend play helps us to live in the Imago Dei. We are created in the image of a creative God, and it helps us to live into that. And it's a safe place for kids to practice new language, practice ideas, practice vocabulary, knowledge, test out things, test out manners. It has shown to grow kids in all of these ways. It helps their attention as well. And it is just, it's just all around so good for kids. And so when we can create a foundation of faith for our kids, then it's going to come out in their pretend play. And then when we partner that with the scaffolding that I talked about last week, when you're talking to your kids about pretend play or you're engaging with your kids in pretend play and you scaffold that, you model a little bit of faith in there. My kids love to pretend call me on the phone, right? So they pretend call me, hi, mommy. And I say, hi, sweetheart. I can't talk right now. I'm going to church. I'm going to go worship God. I'll talk to you later. Love you. Bye. That is simple scaffolding. It adds in a little link. It models a faith life, and it brings it into the pretend play in a very simple, casual way. And then they say, oh, I'll see you at church too. I want to worship God too. Hey, you've just helped create this playful environment for them to process and play out what it means to be a follower of Christ, right? And then you can add other things about going to church. I'm going to church so I can serve. I'm going to church so I can fellowship with other people who love Jesus. And add these into simple little pretend phone conversations, right? Or other kind of pretend play. It doesn't need to be difficult. It can be very simple, but just finding easy ways to add in those little bit of faith things, or, and it doesn't just have to be going to church. It can be about Bible stories, or it can be other things in your faith, that just kind of model. You can ask questions. Really go check out last week's episode about scaffolding for more about how to scaffold. It's just, I think it's one of the best tools that we have as Christian parents for guiding our kids and nurturing their faith life. So check that out. Also, make sure you are on the newsletter because they get something extra each week about the topic. So for this series, it is about the topic. Also, join the Facebook group. You can go to createdtoplay.com/community. It will take you to the Facebook group, and there are even something different from the email list and something different than what I talk about here. But to get the all of the information and resources about these play basics over the rest of this month, you're going to want to be in all three places with me. I would love to hear, how do your kids pretend play? Send me an email, leave it in the Facebook group. I want to know. I will talk to you all soon. I am just so excited about this series. If you want some one-on-one help, if you have questions, please reach out, set up a free Zoom call with me or Facebook Messenger, and let's talk about what it might look like to have me come alongside you one-on-one to work through this, or discipleship through discipline. Either of those things, I would love to help you out. If you are a children's ministry person and want to do some brainstorming about what does this look like in a Sunday school classroom, hey, let's do that too. I want to help. So reach out. Blessings this week. Have fun on your 4th of July if you're listening to this in real time. I will talk to you soon. And on behalf of God, thank you for loving and playing with his kids. Bye. Well, mamas, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me on Playfully Faithful Parenting. I'd love to keep the conversation going over on the socials. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you felt encouraged or equipped by today's show, do me a favor and leave a review. I can't wait to hear your story. Till next week, keep playing and pointing those littles to Christ.